Welcome to another episode of Pursuing Wisdom. My name is Robert Davis, and today we're going to look at the Four Horsemen of Revelation. Traditionally, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are known as symbolic figures described in the book of Revelation in chapter 6. They are released as the Lamb of God, which is Jesus Christ, opens the first four of the seven seals. They apparently serve as harbingers of the last judgment of God. First things first, what is the apocalypse? The term apocalypse, in its original biblical context, particularly in reference to the book of Revelation, means an uncovering, unveiling, or disclosure of divine knowledge and mysteries. However, today it has come to mean the end of the world or a general catastrophe, as it is often used in modern popular culture. We should note this shift in meaning only started in the mid to late 19th century. In actuality, the Four Horsemen have nothing to do with the end of the world. True, they sound ominous and they make for great fiction, but that's not what we're after. We want to know the truth about these figures. How do we know the horsemen are not connected to the end of the world? In my video called, Is Everything After Chapter 3 in the Future? We determined the seven seals showed the past, the seven trumpets depicted the present age, and the seven bowls related to the future. If you want to know how we came to that conclusion, then click on the link in the description below this video. Since my assertion is the Four Horsemen are part of the past or the Old Testament dispensation, what do they represent? To answer this question, let's look at them in order. The first horseman, or the white horse, represents conquest. This rider holds a bow but no arrows, and is given a crown, rides out conquering, and is on a mission to conquer. Some say this rider is the famous Antichrist. Yet others claim this is Jesus riding the horse. However, since we're looking at the Old Testament era, this cannot be true because Christ has not appeared yet on the earth. If Jesus has not come yet, then it cannot be the Antichrist either. It is impossible to have an Antichrist without first having Christ. Let's look at some details. White represents purity. It is never connected to evil in the book of Revelation. The bow is a symbol of victory. And lastly, the crown speaks of honor, power, and dominion. It is important to note the rider does not have any arrows. Consequently, the conquest of this rider will be a bloodless or peaceful one. This definitely sounds like the rider is Jesus. However, it cannot be the Lord due to the nature of the three horses that follow it. The reign of Christ will not bring war, famine, and strife as a result of his coming. So who is this rider? Based on the description, what we have portrayed before us is Adam and Eve before the original sin. God gave them power and authority to rule over the earth, which means they were to subdue or conquer all of creation before the fall. But before we believe this, let's see how it fits with Revelation. The scriptures tell us, in the beginning, Adam and Eve were created as sinless beings, which is symbolic of the white horse. They had dominion over the entire earth. God's intention was that they would be rulers over the earth. Every bird, fish, and creature was to be in subjection to their authority. The command to conquer did not require bloodshed. This is why we don't see any arrows. They were supposed to subdue all living things except humanity itself until everything was under their dominion. Humans were to be under the authority of God, but only God. We saw that Christ did not fit as the rider of the white horse due to the nature of the three horses that followed. However, we know the fall of Adam and Eve did cause wars, famine, and strife to follow. So far, this validates our interpretation of the white horsemen and the dispensation of the seven seals belonging to the past. Now let's look at the second horseman, or the red horse, which represents war. The horseman rides a fiery red horse and is given a great sword. He is granted power to take peace from the earth so that people would slaughter one another. The red color and the sword clearly symbolize widespread warfare, bloodshed, and civil strife. The first seal was before the fall of humanity. This one is afterwards. In the book of Genesis, after Adam and Eve are expelled from the garden, the very next thing we see is the murder of Abel by his brother Cain. The slaying of Abel is the first recorded manifestation of the second seal in the Bible. Once the spirit of murder has been unleashed into the earth, it will remain until the end of the world and death itself is conquered. By transgressing the commandment of God in the garden, Adam and Eve inadvertently opened up a type of Pandora's box. Now, there's no longer a restraint for our conquering spirit. Humanity will not yield to anyone or anything. It is no longer in our nature to submit to God, but we are born fiercely independent even from our Creator. This is why there will always be wars and rumors of wars. The third horseman, or the black horse, represents famine. This rider is on a black horse and holds a pair of scales in his hand. A voice is then heard proclaiming high prices for wheat and barley, a quarter of wheat for a day's pay, indicating severe food shortages and famine. Genesis once again gives us the manifestation of yet another seal. This seal is the result of the original sin. The punishment came directly to Adam for eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Prior to Adam's sin in the garden, the earth freely produced everything in abundance. This seal greatly reduces the food sources of the world, resulting in devastating starvation across the world. We do not have the ability to end famines, but we can minimize their effects if we act with compassion towards our fellow man. The unchecked conquering spirit in man compounds the suffering unleashed by this black horse. And as a result, governments and countries will not cooperate as they should, and today at least 9 million go hungry every year and die. The fourth horseman represents death. This final horseman rides a pale horse. This is the only rider's name that is explicitly given to us in Revelation. He is followed by Hades, which means the grave. He is given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, famine, plagues, and by means of all the beasts of the earth. This fourth seal includes the second and third seals, producing death over a fourth of the earth's population. This should not be thought of as occurring all at once, but rather this is a threshold. There are certain periods of time when we approach the level, but normally the percentage of deaths overall is much lower than a fourth. The opening of the fourth seal introduced sickness, diseases, and deterioration to humans. We see in this seal humanity will experience physical death through a number of means. First, with the sword, it will be man killing man. We saw this in the second seal. Then we see hunger, which is famines. We saw that in the third seal. Now we have death, which is sickness, disease, and deterioration from aging. We have this in this current seal. And also we have beasts of the earth, which man should have conquered in the first seal, now attacks him. Even though humans have introduced these things into the world by means of their sin, the biggest fear we need to address is how to escape the reality of hell, which is separation from God. By putting the seven seals in their proper dispensation, we can clearly see that Jesus, the Lamb of God, is not releasing the four horsemen, but rather he is showing us the cause and effect of the fall of humanity. Therefore, the Lamb is unveiling or revealing the spiritual meaning behind the Old Testament dispensation. This is in line with the original meaning of the word apocalypse, which means to uncover or disclose. By knowing what the horsemen symbolize, we have uncovered the far-reaching effects of the original sin. If you want to know what the other three seals represent, or you want to know the real truth behind Revelation, then click on the link below the description and get your copy of The Final Message, Understanding the Book of Revelation. You'll be glad you did. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, be blessed.